Boom! Texas Longhorns pick up a commitment from the transfer portal. Wide receiver Emmett Mosely V out of Stanford, by way of Rancho Santa Margarita Catholic down in Southern California, has committed to the Longhorns. 48 catches last year for 525 yards, 6 touchdowns. Gerry and CJ, big pickup for the Longhorns. He visited Texas over the weekend, has committed to the Longhorns. This is a big pickup for Texas because we knew Texas needed to go to the transfer portal for a wide receiver, and they pick up a big one, 6'2", 200 pounds, very productive freshman season. Gerry, you're a little familiar with Emmett Mosely and his family. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah, I mean, there's kids that come from really good stock athletically, and he's almost at the top of the list there. His dad was a tremendous player, played football at Notre Dame. His mom was the soccer national player of the year at Notre Dame, so the equivalent of the Heisman or the Wooden and Naismith Award. Little brother's committed to USC as a wide receiver. Texas offered him. Chris Jackson actually went to see him, really liked him, but the little brother Trent Mosely decided to stay closer to home, so that's something that we were kind of monitoring when this Emmett Mosely visit popped up. What would he do? We knew he'd visited Virginia earlier in the process, but a guy that looks really good physically. Like you said, he's a legit 6'2", probably 190, 195. But really well built, put together. You can tell he's been in college for a year. But I think the key with him, and CJ's got some more in depth on him statistically, is I think there's more Texas can unlock with him. I think Stanford struggled to throw the ball down the field at times last year. So they used him to the best of their ability. I think he's got more. I think he's more than, for the Texas fans to say, was he 10.9 yards per catch? What, is he a downfield threat? I think he's more than what that he was able to show at Stanford, guys. I think he's more of a 13, 14 yard per catch guy as his career moves forward.
CJ, you talk about those stats. What do you think about that? And I watch his film, and frankly, I see a guy with strong hands, athleticism, large catch range, or radius, I should say. What do you see about him that you like, CJ?
Yeah, well, historically, getting on the field as a true freshman at Stanford, not very easy, right? He set freshman records at Stanford for receptions with 48 and receiving touchdowns with 6. And he was only behind Richard Sherman, believe it or not, in receiving yards as a true freshman at Stanford. So pretty good freshman campaign all in all. And this is only in 9 games. Let's keep that in mind. He didn't play the first 4 weeks. And you see 525 yards. That's really good as a second option opposite of Alec Aymanor, who's going to be a day 2 pick in the NFL draft later this month. But you start looking at his final 3 weeks, Bobby, about 320 yards combined in those 3 games. He had a big breakout game against Louisville for 13 receptions, 168 yards, and 3 scores. I think that's pretty good as a freshman. But all in all, to Gerry's point, you see 10.9, think, okay, maybe a underneath guy. No, his double moves, his ability to create down the field and separate with his body control, it was evident in the final second half of the season or so. I think it's a great pickup for what Texas wants to do with Arch Manning this fall.
I got to ask you guys about that exact point. What does Texas want to do with Arch Manning and these bigger receivers they're picking up? I also want to mention this, Gerry. You mentioned about his younger brother, Trent, is committed to USC already. He's also a wide receiver. He's in the 2026 class. Texas did offer him a scholarship as well. We'll see if this has any bearing or impact. It may or may not. We don't know quite yet. The other thing I would say is his older sister, Jalen, played soccer at Iowa. This is a highly athletic family as well. But we talk about how Texas might use Emmett Mosely. They've got Ryan Wingo, big receiver, guys, 6'2", 200 plus. Parker Livingstone, 6'3 and a half, 6'4, 190, long arms. DeAndre Moore is returning. Not a small guy himself, but not a huge. Is this a changing of the guard that Texas is trying to get bigger wide receivers to pair with Arch Manning so that they can maybe utilize the back shoulder throw to the outside more, utilize the downfield advantages that he has, and can give folks that have big catch radiuses?
I think it's part of it. I think that's part of it for sure, because I do think within Sark's scheme we're going to see a lot of change because of Arch Manning's strengths of quarterback. But I also think a bigger piece of it is the conference Texas is playing in now. These are bigger, longer limb, taller, more physical defensive backs. And I think that requirement then becomes you have to have bigger, stronger wide receivers who can go win 50-50 balls because against these talented DBs. And then the flip side of that is a big difference between the Big 12 and the SEC is the front seven defensive talent. They can get pressure on your quarterbacks more. And so what does that mean? That means you're going to have more 50-50 balls. You're going to have more off-schedule throws by your quarterbacks. And the only way you're going to win a lot of those, and these guys can only scheme so much, is then off-schedule when the ball's in the air because of the pressure on the quarterback. Does your wide receiver have the ability to go make a play against an NFL defensive back? Everybody you play in the SEC is going to have an NFL pass rusher and an NFL defensive back. Can your guys go win one-on-one in those situations? And I think you're seeing Texas build a wide receiver room that is better equipped to do that when they didn't have to have that size necessarily in the Big 12.
CJ, what do you think of the wide receiver room overall now with this addition? Highly productive guy. Ryan Wingo had some production last year. DeAndre Moore clearly had production. Texas now goes into 2025 with three guys that had real production just a year ago, but they're all fairly young still.
Still very young, right? You know, and we just talked about a true freshman campaign for Mosley. Well, again, Ryan Wingo going into year 2. DeAndre Moore is really the only upperclassman here, and he's in year 3. So very young, but now you got three guys with production. And that was the big concern is we see it firsthand this spring. If either of those two guys go down, you're relying on a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience, right? No career catches. We've talked about it, yada, yada, yada. But point being, now at least you've got another guy who's been there and done that in big games and has multiple breakout games, right? I mentioned that Louisville game. He cleared 100 yards against San Jose State, the final game of the regular season as well. That's a great note right there in terms of what this room could be. Because, again, you play opposite of Ayo Manor, you're going to get some looks. You play opposite of a Ryan Wingo, you're going to get some looks. To be able to know that there's going to be reliability on the opposite side of the ball there, that's big for Texas and big for this wide receiver room, who otherwise would have been just a lot of unknowns going into 2025.
I think one of the things that I want to point out, too, that y'all kind of led into with this is, you know, when we were talking about the need at portal wide receiver, and by the way, we're not saying Texas is done either. We want to make that clear. But we were thinking older guy that would be here a year, bounce on into the NFL draft. And that guy may still jump in the portal and be part of this roster too. But the interesting thing with Emmett Mosely is if you're staring down the likelihood of having Arch Manning for 2 years, now you look at Emmett Mosely as being a 2-year player along with DeAndre Moore and along with Ryan Wingo and these young freshman receivers. So what it really does is gives you a really good room to gain more experience this year and really set those guys up to be very experienced college receivers with a potential pro upside in year 2 for Arch Manning.
So 2026 could look even brighter than 2025 per se, if that nucleus stays intact, right, is what you're getting at. I completely agree. My thought here is this. I mean, obviously the Longhorn coaches want him. He's another player out in California, Southern California. So Johnny Nansen, Steve Sarkisian, Jeff Banks kind of reaching back into their roots. Chris Jackson went to Modern Day as well. So he's back out there. Do you see Texas doing more and more on the West Coast? Because as it sits right now, it's been seeming like Texas doing more and more in the Southeast. But I tell you what, the Texas with DeAndre Moore, for example, out of St. John Bosco, not afraid to go out west for the offensive skill players, Spencer Shannon at Modern Day, et cetera.
Yeah, I think. Look, I think 95% of your recruiting classes for Texas are going to come from California, Arizona, and then Texas through the Southeast region. I just think that's where 95% of the guys Texas signs are going to come from. But Texas wants to have a strong footprint in Southern California. There is no doubt about it. They have too many connections. You just went through them out there to not have success in Southern California. Now, how much success Texas ultimately has in Southern California is going to come down to the season USC has on the field this year, and is there turmoil there, even though Lincoln Riley has an $88 million buyout. Ooh, that sounds good if you get fired, by the way. That's a lot.
Jimbo Fisher would be proud.
That's a lot of beachfront property, even in SoCal in Orange County. But look, I think that's where 95% of the guys Texas get is signs are going to come from, whether that's especially at the high school ranks. Portal's a little different. But I think this one just kind of works out for Texas that Mosley was a SoCal guy who'd gone up to Stanford, and the timing of all of it worked out for Texas, and the academic piece. Look, when you pick Stanford coming out of high school, your parents went to Notre Dame, you have a younger brother that went to USC. This isn't just football decisions. These are football and academic decisions. Obviously, he had also visited Virginia prior to committing to Texas. So these decisions aren't just about football. These are true student-athlete decisions.
It's not like he's ending up at Tech, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would say this in adding to that conversation. I think that it's quite clear that Sark and how they're using the portal is they want proven commodities. And even though he's just a freshman, Emmett Mosely V is a proven commodity of
Yes.
There's no doubt about what you're getting or whether he's going to be successful. It's just how successful can he be in the Texas offense with a team that, to y'all's point, CJ in particular, can throw the ball down a little bit more, go down the field a little bit more. All right, y'all have anything else to add before we let folks go? Again, Texas getting a commitment from Stanford wide receiver Emmett Mosely V, picking him up out of the transfer portal just moments ago. Either of you guys have anything you want to add?
The only thing I would add is I'm not sure Texas has ever signed a football player whose mom was the best in America at a college sport and actually won the soccer version of the Heisman Trophy. So, I mean, Texas recruited some talented kids with talented parents that are athletes before, but she's like the first Heisman Trophy winner, I think, that Sark's recruited to Texas.
Arch Manning's dad and
none of them won the Heisman, Bobby. None of them won the Heisman.
That's true. That's true. All right. Hey, thank you all very much, and congrats again to the University of Texas on the commitment of Emmett Mosely V. And one more thing for you, Emmett. Hook 'em, buddy.